Good afternoon. I was waiting for our public corruption team who shall be joining us shortly. So as they come in, I will introduce them to all of you. Many of you already know them, but rather than keep you waiting, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the right to vote in a free and fair election is our most fundamental right that must be respected and protected. Our entire democracy depends on it. Unfortunately, Miami has had its own share of high-profile cases of voter fraud. I'm sure some of you may remember. I and my public corruption prosecutors charged 36 people in a massive election scandal that virtually stole Miami's 1997 mayoral race. That case involved a number of paid absentee ballot brokers known as boleteros, who collected votes of older voters. One charged individual in particular was an appointed member of Miami's code enforcement, with witnessing over 38 of the illegally cast absentee ballots. It happened on such a large scale that a judge, a circuit court judge, dethroned the then mayor of Miami and declared that an election had been stolen. Today, when voter fraud is discussed, unfortunately, this Miami case is inevitably mentioned. Sadly, this was not an isolated event. We had recently 2 women who had been arrested. For example, you may remember, it was discovered that a 74-year-old temporary worker for the county elections department had submitted at least 2 fraudulent votes for a mayoral candidate after she altered the ballot during the vote counting process. We also prosecuted a 33-year-old woman after she was charged with filling out voter registration forms for 5 people without their consent and submitting 17 forms for people who didn't exist and several forms for other people who were unfortunately dead. We in law enforcement take these actions, which violate our election laws, very seriously. They are crimes. So let's go to the first screen, if you would. You'll see Florida statute up there states, whoever, knowing he or she is a qualified, not a qualified elector, or in other words, a voter, willfully votes at any election is guilty of a felony of the 3rd degree. Today, we are announcing the charging of Anthony Defillipo, the present mayor of the city of North Miami Beach, with 3 counts of unqualified elector, willfully voting, which is a 3rd degree felonies. You'll also see there up on the screen, Faceboard 2, records from the Miami-Dade Elections Department and the city of North Miami Beach allegedly indicate that Anthony Defillipo voted 3 times using a City of Miami Beach address, specifically 1458 Northeast 177th Street in North Miami Beach, Dade County, a home in which he no longer resided in, having sold the property on or about December 27th of 2021. Today, and I'm just so happy that our team was freed up to come and join us. I think most of you know our Chief Assistant, Howard Rosen, who's the Chief Assistant over all specialized units, including public corruption. To his left is Tim Vandergiesen, our Deputy Chief, and most of you know he's been here for 10 years heading up our public corruption task force, and they just do a remarkable job. And standing right behind him is one of the investigators. It's on our public corruption task force, Robert Fielder, and then this young, wonderful young prosecutor, Annette Rasco, is the lawyer that's on this case. You did an incredible job. Very proud of you, and the community thanks you for your hard work. So going back to the voting, you'll see up there that we believe that evidence shows that he voted illegally 3 times. On August of 2022 in the primary election, then again later in a general election of October 2022, and then again in the general election in November of 2022. I know that some may wonder why Anthony Defillipo is not being charged with a crime related to his residency outside of the city of North Miami Beach while being the mayor of North Miami Beach. The reason is because violating the requirements of North Miami Beach City Charter is not a crime. It's a city charter violation. And resolving possible charter violations is something that any citizen of that particular municipality, and this one is North Miami Beach, may do by filing a civil lawsuit, which, by the way, did occur in this case. We have filed criminal charges against others who said they lived in one location when in truth they lived in another address to qualify as a candidate for that elected office. For example, in the cases of former State Representative Daisy Baez and former Sweetwater Commissioner Sofia Lacayo, their crimes involved the filing of false paperwork with the Department of Elections for the purpose of qualifying as a candidate for an elected office, and then swearing that that false information was true. There is no evidence to indicate that Anthony Defillipo did not live at the Northeast 177th Street address in the city of North Miami Beach at the time that he qualified for office, because Anthony Defillipo was already in office. He already was the mayor, and he did not need to qualify as a candidate for that position. Those that say these crimes are not important are just dead wrong. Nothing could be further from the truth. And to do so is to blatantly ignore our law that protects all of us. Deliberately swearing to false information, as alleged in this case, eats at the credibility of our voting and electoral systems. So take a look up at the screen, if you would, and you'll see there that one of the requirements in Florida law is that when an elector changes his or her residence, their address, the elector must notify the supervisor of elections. And that's important because if you'll see there, a related statute to that states that the electors must be registered in a precinct which provides for the change of residence or his name. A reason a person is not permitted to vote in any election or district or precinct other than the one in which the person has his or her legal residence in which the person is registered is fundamental. As was mentioned earlier, under existing Florida law, violating these statutes is a third-degree felony. Now, let me explain, if I may, how these alleged violations occurred and how they were pieced together, resulting in the charges filed today. Anthony Defillipo lived with his wife jointly, and they owned and resided in their home at 1458 Northeast 177th Street in North Miami Beach for 14 years before they sold the property on or about December 27th of 2021. The home they sold was located in Miami-Dade County. On the screen, you'll see the warranty deed there. We've blocked out the buyers because we don't need to. They're not involved in this case whatsoever. You'll see there that it was sold. You can see it's highlighted in yellow on the 27th of December, and you'll see the address down at the bottom, AKA, in other words, the legal description is really that address, 1458 Northeast 177th Street. Shortly thereafter, after they sold this property, we believe he and his family moved to Davie, which is in Broward County. However, in 3 separate North Miami Beach-related elections, the August 23rd, 2022 primary election, then again, early voting on October 25th, 2022, and then again on the November general election, And the North Miami Beach runoff election was on November 22nd, 2022. If you look at the next screen, George, you will see there, now this is the primary election there, in August of 2022. I don't think you need my help in pointing it out, but you'll see there, you'll see the address, and you'll see the date, and actually the time will become relevant shortly. I'll show you how. Then you go to the next election, and by the way, here on this one, you can see that he actually swore that he lived at that 1458 Northeast 177th Street in North Miami Beach, again, in Miami-Dade. You'll see there, this is the early voting where you can vote at different places, as you know. But when you do that, you have to verify that that's your address, you have to sign it, and you have to again affirm it. And you'll see there again, that's what he did. You can see the address information, it's clearly visible, as well as you can see his signature. Then if we go over to the next screen, you'll see the runoff election in November of 23. You'll see there that, again, the same thing. The address of 177th Street, his signature, the date, and the time. In a sworn deposition that was taken as part of the civil lawsuit that I mentioned to you earlier, that can be taken when there are city charter violations, he said that he basically, he outlined that he and his wife had sold that property at 177th Street on December 27, 2021, as was indicated earlier in the warranty deed that you just saw. He and his wife had also sold another property in Broward County sometime in June of 2022 before buying their Davie home in Broward County on 7/11/2022, which is what our investigation appears to indicate was actually Defillipo's residence. How do we know? How do we know that? How do we know? Because the mayor, if you go to the next screen, George, you will see the first square there, the house to the left, is his Davie residence that's in Broward County. And the cell phone, this is all from cell phone data. It shows there that in the morning, at around 9 o'clock in the morning, the cell phone locations put him right there. You can see the cell site zone there, and you can see the red indicates where his home is. That's the visual. Now, if we go back, please, to the other screen that we just had a second ago, you'll see he then travels from Davie, Broward County, to the polling location where he votes at around 4 o'clock p.m., and it's in Dade County. It's in North Miami Beach, Dade County. You'll see there that we can see where his phone and he are. You see the blue indicates sort of the south side phone zone. You can see that. And then you'll see the red indicates where where the voting poll is. And you'll see the time there. In just a second, we'll show you on another one we have. Let's go back to the other screen, please, George. And then he leaves there, and around 7:30 in the evening, he goes back home. He goes back to his residence in Davie, Broward County. The same thing occurs on the subsequent one that I talked to you about, the early voting, general election day. He's in Davie at around 9 a.m., then around 5 o'clock, he's back at a polling station. He returns back to Broward County around 8:30 in the evening. Similar situation, same pattern occurs on 11/23/2022, the runoff election. The cell phone remained at or near his Davie home in Broward County at around 6:40 a.m. Then you'll see the cell data shows us that he's at the polling precinct in North Miami Beach, Dade County, at approximately 1 p.m. And then you'll see later that day, he returns to his home around 11:50 p.m. in Davie, Broward County. Our voting laws apply to everyone, anyone voting in any election. There are no unwritten exceptions. We're asking the public, we have a public corruption task force. We have a hotline that's staffed 24/7. It's there for the public to reach out. If anyone knows of any voters that are cheating, even if they only have a suspicion, if you know of any other forms of public corruption, please call that hotline number and give us the information so that we can continue to do what we need to do to restore confidence in our community and our precious government and voting privileges. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and then we'll break down for Spanish. Yes, sir.
His argument, I guess, on camera was that he did this on accident. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between maybe intentions and then just having your paperwork correct on some of his voting stuff?
You know, I've made a policy of trying not to try cases in the public, and I expect that we will hear many defenses, and that's the process, and I respect that process. I respect the process of trying to understand what are the charges, why is he being charged, and letting them respond. That's due process, and we respect that. So we will certainly be pursuing that in the courtroom. Yes, sir.
What prompted this investigation?
You know, we got complaints. And when we get those kinds of complaints, we try to follow up on them, and we did. We did ask for cooperation. Unfortunately, it was not forthcoming, and so it took a little longer because much of this, especially the cell site information, had to be pursuant to subpoenas. So that's how we proceed, and that's an important point because we really want the public to understand if you make us aware of crimes that are occurring, we will do our best to ferret them out, follow the law. We're always going to follow the law, and hold those accountable that should be held accountable. Yes, sir.
Thank you. How long were the investigators tracking the cell phone data, and was this part of the main investigation?
So it was later on during the investigation that we requested this information, what we call vis-a-vis a subpoena. In other words, we needed to go to the companies that run these cell sites and ask them for that information. They then give us that information, and we therefore are able to piece and track them together. Yes, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand go back up.
It's fine. As part of your investigation and the cell phone data, did it show any evidence that he was living at the home he claims to have been living at, both his mother's property, which he said he was living at for some time, and then the one-bedroom apartment he also said he was living at as well?
You know, I'm going to let everyone else be the judge of that. We feel as if we believe in our case. We believe in the evidence, and we're relying on the evidence. We're relying on data. You can see that it's pretty well pieced together, both through the Department of Elections that we obtained information from, and from the cell phone data, and warranty deeds and other such things. So we're going to litigate this in the courtroom where it belongs, in a court of law, and present the evidence, and the jury and judge will vote. Yes, sir.
Basic question, but on just so I'm understanding the law correctly, is it a crime to vote kind of in the incorrect precinct or having the incorrect information on your registration?
The one that is a violation of criminal law is the latter. You cannot vote where you're not registered resident to vote from. There's some exceptions, being in the military, for instance, is an exception. So that is what he did here. We believe, and the allegations we believe, prove that he was voting in a county that he wasn't living in.
And building off that, when you talk about the county, would it have made a difference if you determined his residence was still in North Miami Beach somewhere, or not, based on the outlining of he was voting in the wrong precinct either way, based on how he was describing what residence he was living in? So So would it have made it, what I'm saying is this, would it have made a difference if you determined he was still living in North Miami Beach at the other addresses, which clearly point out in the affidavit that either way, he wasn't gonna be voting in the precinct he was signing off voting at? So would it still have been a felony and a crime had he done that as well, if you didn't determine he lived in a different?
If I understand your question correctly, because I don't really do hypotheticals,
Yeah.
but I think I understand your question. You know, we are going to rely on the evidence that we have. And I don't mean to keep giving you that same answer, but that's the right answer, I believe, at this time, is we're going to rely on the evidence.
Can you comment on the penalties for these charges?
Yes, they're third-degree felonies, and I think they're punishable by 5 years each count.
Oh, how
Yes.
did his deposition factor into the charging as well in the gathering of evidence with his story saying he was renting out a property he claimed to be living at, and then what he submitted to the city clerk's office as his primary address? How much did you use the deposition when coming to the conclusion of where he was living?
Really, the evidence that we have, with or without the deposition, we feel is very strong. Listen, this doesn't give us any pleasure to do. This is something we have to do. It's our job. The public depends on us to do this. Do we look at all information? We do. We look at all information. We give all due consideration on all aspects of a crime, because when you indict somebody or you have someone arrested, we take that very seriously, that obligation. It's a very important role that we play in our community. So yes, we consider everything, and then in the end, we rely on the law and we rely on the evidence. Okay, I don't see any questions in English. Can we go to Spanish real quick then, if you want to break down, so we can give our Spanish-speaking friends in the media their due respect? It'll be much shorter in Spanish, by the way. Can I say something wrong?
No, sorry, we heard something happened on coordination. We normally come to you first. I apologize. We're waiting to be called. Sorry, boss. We didn't get. We're literally sitting there saying, "Hey, Steve called and said, right."
I know we're walking down.
We said we're waiting for the call. Sorry.
What did I say wrong?
No, I'm just gonna hear.
Oh.
There's parts in Spanish about the statute. I don't know either. Okay, so should I just?
I'll go like this. You went a little faster for me. I didn't want to do that in front of everybody, but yeah, stay tight. We good? Can you, everybody hear all right? Those that.
We're doing Spanish, so if you're gonna
Thank you. ¿Cómo estás?
Okay,
Okay.
and we're gonna close the door. Thank you.
Nosotros, en las agencias del orden público, tomamos acciones que violan nuestras leyes electorales muy en serio, porque son delitos. El Estatuto de la Florida dice que quien sabiendo que no es un votante calificado, o en otras palabras, un votante, vota voluntariamente en cualquier elección, es culpable de un delito mayor de tercer grado. Hoy anunciamos cargos en contra de Anthony Defillipo, el actual alcalde de la ciudad de Miami Beach, con 3 cargos de electores no calificados con voto voluntario. Estos supuestos delitos son delitos mayores de tercer grado. Registros del Departamento de Elecciones de Miami-Dade y de Ciudad de North Miami Beach indican que Anthony Defillipo votó 3 veces usando una dirección en la ciudad de North Miami Beach, específicamente 1458 Northeast 177 Street en North Miami Beach, en el condado de Miami-Dade. Una vivienda en la que él no había y había vendido en el 27 de diciembre de 2021, alegamos que Anthony Defillipo vivía en el condado de Broward, pero votaba ilegalmente en Miami-Dade usando su antigua dirección. Él votó ilegalmente en agosto 2022, octubre 2022 y noviembre 2022. La Florida dice, la estatuta de la Florida dice que cuando un votante cambia su dirección de residencia, el votante debe notificar al supervisor de elecciones. Nuestras leyes de votación se aplican por igual a todos los que votan en cualquier elección. No hay privilegios ni trato especial. Hoy, las acusaciones de trampa electoral son importantes y por lo tanto debemos actuar cuando tenemos pruebas reales de que ocurrió algo impropio o algo irregular en la votación. No hay duda de esto. El derecho a votar en una elección libre y justa es nuestro derecho más fundamental. Toda nuestra democracia depende de eso. El fraude de voto es un delito y procederemos que cualquier persona que viola este derecho con todo el peso de la ley. Si alguien tiene alguna información sobre crímenes relacionados con el voto o elecciones de corrupción pública, por favor, llame a nuestra línea directa 305-547-3390. Gracias. Sí, señor.
Gracias. ¿Cómo supo la Fiscalía inicialmente de esta situación y cuánto ha durado esta investigación?
Hemos recibido muchas quejas sobre esta situación y además, bueno, dura más o menos como 7 meses, pero recuerda que teníamos que obtener muchos documentos del Departamento de Elecciones, del Southside, y poner todo eso en una forma de evidencia que demuestra que él ha violado la ley.
Fiscal, ¿cuál es la evidencia que tiene en este caso?
¿Todo eso lo quieres?
No,
Pero no, no.
español brevemente.
Sí. Bueno, tenemos la documentación de las elecciones. Tenemos también los Southside que has visto allá, que ponga él donde estaba durmiendo, cuando él levanta por la mañana y va a votar en otro condado. Fue de Broward County a Dade County a votar y por la noche fue por su casa en Broward County.
En caso de ser en estos campos, si son hallados culpables, la pena cuál sería.
Esos son delitos de tercer grado y la penalidad es hasta 5 años para cada uno.
Aquí no se está sancionando, fiscal, el hecho de que él supuestamente vivía en Davie. Eso no es un delito criminal, sino que votó con una dirección no actualizada.
Eso es el corazón de la ley, que tienes que votar donde vives, donde tú tienes su residencia. Eso es fundamental para todas las personas que viven en este barrio o este precinto o este condado. Depende de las elecciones, pero son muy importantes. Ok, gracias.